Special meeting to order. We will address the business for this evening. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Ingert.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember McDonald.
Present.
Councilmember Rowe.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. I will remind you, I didn't say this, but today is Monday, April the 13th, 2026, in case they're separated events. Okay, now would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oops, gotta go down to the podium. All right, well, this evening, in this meeting, we have two proclamations to give. Both will be going to public safety, but the first one is for the recognition of National Animal Care and Control Appreciation Week. So, if I could have my animal control officers, please join me up here. All right. I'd like to read this proclamation if I could. It says, whereas when the health and welfare of animals in the city of Raymore is at stake, animal control professionals are needed to ensure the safety and well-being of both domestic and wild animals. And whereas the safety of our citizens is dependent upon the skills of these professionals to assist the community in providing a disease-free, nuisance-free environment through enforcement and education. And whereas the animal control personnel of the Raymore Police Department often risk life and limb to protect the citizens and animals of this community. And whereas many animals, both domestic and wild, owe their lives to the unwavering efforts of animal control personnel that have rescued them from injury, disease, abuse, and starvation by providing necessary food, shelter, and medical attention. And whereas the animal control officers of the Raymore Police Department have contributed substantially to the overall safety of our community by demonstrating compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their duties. Now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the week of April 12th through 18th, 2026 as National Animal Care and Control Appreciation Week in the City of Raymore in the honor of those whose diligence and professionalism keep our city, citizens, and animals safe. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 13th day of April 2026. Thank you for your service. Appreciate you guys so much. Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. And I have another honor. As you know, Friday night I presided, if you didn't see my Facebook post, but I was able to preside over the Mid-America Regional Council's Public Safety Communicators Awards banquet. And it really was my honor to hear of all the great work that these folks do throughout the week and are recognized for a few of those items that they consider to be normal business of operation. But I'm going to invite our telecommunicators who are presenting the department here tonight to please step forward and accept this proclamation. Whereas when our community faces a crisis, whether on an individual level or on a massive scale, when seconds count and the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property, public safety telecommunicators stand ready to answer the call 24 hours a day. And whereas the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent upon the skill of our public safety telecommunicators in obtaining accurate information from citizens who contact the Raymore Police Department Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are first responders in the truest sense, but often go unheralded for the critical role they play in the success of any police, fire, or EMS call for service. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are a vital link for police officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas the public safety telecommunicators of the Raymore Police Department contribute immeasurably to the safety of our community by demonstrating compassion, understanding, and professionalism each day in the performance of their duties. Now therefore, I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the week of April 13th through 18th, 2026, as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the City of Raymore in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 13th day of April, 2026. Thank you for your service. Appreciate you very much. Thank you very much. You guys be safe. Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you all for your attention to that. We'll now move on to personal appearances. I don't think we have anyone scheduled for this evening. So the next item up is staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just first, as everybody might be able to tell by now, with all the phones going off, we are under tornado watch. You could kind of tell the distance between when people get notified on that, and now staffs are going off because we actually get 2 notifications, one from dispatch. So, first report tonight, I would ask Mr. Gress to make a report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, in your packet this evening was a department report for the month of March. Just 2 brief things I wanted to highlight. We did have another strong month with 15 new permits that were issued for new single-family homes throughout the Parkside, Saddlebrook, Knoll Creek, and Creekmore neighborhoods. So brings our total for this year up to 42 new home permits, which is a little bit higher than where we were this time last year. So it's good to see that progress continue. And then we were also finally able to close out the project there at Grant Park Villas, which is, some of the council may remember, is the income-restricted apartment project there for veterans and veterans' families, just north of 58 between Adams and Grant Drive. So we issued the certificates of occupancy last week, and so those many of those units are now available for occupancy to get some families into those units. Excuse me. That would conclude my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Gress at this time? Seeing none, I'll move back to Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. I would ask for a report from the chief.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm going to give you a real brief summary of the year end for 2025 NIBRS scored crime overview. This is going to be Group A, similar to UCR Part 1s. So we had 725 scoreable offenses, which is 75 less than the previous year. Of those, 205 were cleared, kept us about 27% clearance rate. Last year we were at 33%. No homicides this year. We did have 1 involuntary manslaughter case. Overall, 522 arrests, which is about 30 less than last year. Investigations took in 425 cases. They cleared 122. I know that number sounds relatively low. We've had a completely new investigations group, so there's a lot of time learning. Side note, we have additional 43 cases at the Cass County Prosecutor's Office waiting for filing decisions. And then we had additional 23 still pending for the previous year. Total CAT events were up by 107. We went from 50,453 to 50,560. Raymore PD events total were 33,214, a little bit of an increase from last year with 31,797. Raymore total reports were at 2,598, which is a slight increase from the year before of about 25 reports. Total phone calls were about 54,892. Emergency calls went up from 9,706 to 10,223. With the flock safety, utilizing flock safety, we had 7 arrests, 4 recovered stolen autos, 4 recovered stolen license plates, and 57 investigative leads. Animal control calls for service, they were at about 1,335 with 213 animals impounded, 25 adopted, 54 animals transferred, and 113 animals returned. I just want to add one more thing. In the next few weeks, we're going to be adding crime mapping from our RMS that should just go out to a map, and there should be a link on our website, so please be looking out for that. It's going to really mostly just kind of go with that Group A that'll be on the map. I will give everybody a warning ahead of time. 100 Municipal Circle is going to have a lot of dots because we take a lot of reports there, but more to follow. So that's my report this evening. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Anybody have any questions of the chief on his report this evening? Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. Chief, good report. Just kind of a summarization. Calls for service were up, correct?
Yeah, calls for service were up.
Crime was down, as measured by the FBI and the new NIBRS
Yes.
category. Some people might consider very low-level things like trespassing or littering, and those aren't captured in those statistics.
Those are not scorable offenses.
But the scorable offenses were down from the previous year, and we maintained, you said, a 27% clearance rate. Maybe I can pick on your brain. It's been a while, but I believe the national average on clearance rate somewhere used to be between about 17 and 22%. Is that still fairly accurate?
I think it's a little bit higher.
A little bit higher now?
25 to 35, usually it fluctuates.
So we're somewhere right in that category.
One of the things that I would say was some of the Group A, well, and some of the Group B, you know, the cases are getting a little bit more technical, so they take longer to investigate as far as fraud. And just about every case on both Group A and Group B, you know, everybody has cell phones. And with cell phones, you know, we have to go after the evidence. And even when there's runaway juveniles, you know, we're using cell phones. So it takes time these days.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And Chief, could you explain the flock again, the flock cameras? I'm not really sure, you know, with the new people that have come into our community, even on the council here, they have not really been briefed on the flock system, how robust it is, how many are in the system, and what really, generally, how we use it as an investigative tool or even a response tool.
Oh, that's all we use it for is an investigative tool. We're not monitoring this. So the flock safety system is cameras with LPRs on them.
License plate readers?
Yeah, I'm sorry, license plate readers. We don't monitor those 24/7. They're set up like if we have a stolen auto or a stolen license plate that comes through and hits, it'll send a email or alert to dispatch, and they send that out. Missing persons, if a missing persons is associated to a car, but again, we're not monitoring those all the times. Now, how investigations use those is if there's a burglary or if there is a missing person at a certain time, we'll look at that time frame and see if we can identify a possible vehicle that's leaving the scene. And you know, sometimes we get lucky and we can find a license plate, and then other times we don't. You know, it's gone the other way.
And this is actually a national asset. It's not just to this area or to us, it's to the metro area and beyond.
Yes, not just with us. I mean, it is in the metro. I would say that we were one of the first agencies in West Central Missouri to obtain flock. We had 4 starting out a few years ago, and then a few cities. The next city was Wichita, Kansas, with 213. We only had 4. And then Blue Springs all of a sudden blew up, and you know, they ended up with like 100 and plus cameras. So we only have about 8. And then Lowe's nationally, they have them. There are some HOAs that have purchased them. Creekmore is one of them. And, you know, we get certain alerts that way as well. It'd be nice if other communities, other HOAs in the city would get a few. That way we would get the alerts if a car's stolen or if there's a missing person and so forth.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that explanation. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. Great report, Chief, very detailed. We talked in the past about the electric vehicles about some stops, we're gonna start taking place and whatnot. We just went through spring break, and boy, that's the one thing I hear all the time. What are we gonna do? Somebody's gonna get hurt. These kids are getting out of control. Just didn't know if you have any details on that. Are you guys still compiling data, or what's going on with that?
We're gonna do a heavy campaign throughout the warm weather. Last year, I don't know if you recall, I made contact with the juvenile office and talked to them about some of the juveniles that were out on the roadway, driving carelessly on those scooters or on the golf carts or neighborhood vehicles, whatever you want to call them. And they typically didn't take those type of cases because those were left in municipal court as a driving offense. However, the juvenile office will be taking some of those, and what we're going to do is just what we ended up with last year. If we get a call or we observe someone driving, the golf cart's a little bit easier than the scooter, but we will be making contacts with the parents, and if they'll get a warning, we'll let them know that we're going to refer the child, and then if they do it again, then we're going to charge the parent with endangerment.
Thanks, Chief. Anyone else have any questions of the chief at this time? Okay. Turn it back to Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Chief. So next week, and we brought this to the council once before here in the last 2 months, while we have a lot of internal development issues and programs that we're working on, it's taking a considerable amount of time because some of these are pretty robust programs, something that we would be presenting to the city council in a work session format. We do not have any at this time that have reached the point where we feel comfortable presenting a complete package to the council. So would be requesting that the council cancel their work session for next week, take a night off. And will be things like the mapping program, et cetera, that we're trying to get into place so we can actually be presenting that. That's a real good example of what we would be taking to you all to give the detail of it here at a future meeting. We do see a whole bunch of those coming at once though, so we're not presenting a single item that only takes 20 minutes to the city council and wasting 20 minutes of your time. That concludes staff reports tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Fearborn at this time? Seeing now, we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, we have 3 items this evening. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda in parts or in total.
Your Honor,
Mr. Holman.
with the new council members here, I would probably recommend we break this apart since they may or may not have studied the minutes. They weren't certainly on the council at the time, so I'll make a motion at this time to approve item A, the city council meeting minutes from the meeting on March 23rd, 2026. I'll follow up with a motion on the other 2 after that one.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the city council meeting minutes of March 23rd, 2026. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 8-0. Okay. Mr. Holman, you have another motion.
Yes, sir. I would move at this time that we approve item B of the consent agenda, which is the acceptance of public infrastructure, Creekside Ranch lots 2 through 20, and acceptance of public infrastructure Park Trails Replacement Phase 2.
Thank you, sir. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the readings of Resolution 26-21 and 26-22. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 4025 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 4025 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from A Agricultural District to RE Rural Estate District for the property identified as Prairie Acres, a subdivision of land in the north half of the southwest quarter of Section 12, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. Since this is a second reading, but we have 2 new members on the council, would staff care to give a brief description of this?
Absolutely, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, the request before you this evening with this item is one of two applications related to the property. The first one is a rezoning request made by the property owner, Kent Stark, who owns the property at 707 North Prairie Lane. In short, the property owner owns about 60 acres right now on this parcel of land. The request this evening is to both rezone or seek the transition of the current zoning of the property from agricultural to a rural estate district, RE designation, and also final plat, approximately 4.5 acres of that overall 60-acre tract of land. The parcel of land in question includes the primary dwelling on the property, as well as some related agricultural barns and buildings and accessory structures on the property. The reasoning behind the zoning is that under the current agricultural designation, the property owner has to maintain at least 10 acres to keep that designation. So to parcel off less than 10 acres necessitates the request to rezone the property to an RE, which has a much smaller land area minimum requirement. As part of this, the remainder of the property that the applicant owns remains unplatted and zoned agricultural. If for any reason they decide to sell that or seek development for it in the future, it would have to come back through the city, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council under the same process we're at right now with Lot 1 of Prairie Acres. The Planning and Zoning Commission did hold a public hearing on this item at their February 17th meeting. They did vote 6-0 to send it to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. And at the City Council's previous meeting, you also held a public hearing on this application and unanimously voted to approve the rezoning, and the request is before you all now for second reading. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions of staff? All right. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Your Honor,
Mr. Holman,
I would move that we approve Bill 4025, Prairie Acres Lot 1 rezoning from agriculture to rural estate.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 4025. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 4026 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 4026 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the final plat for the Prairie Acres subdivision, a subdivision of land in the north half of the southwest quarter of Section 12, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. As this is a follow-up to the previous issue, I would assume there's no further questions, but I'll ask if there are any further questions. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Your Honor,
Mr. Holman,
sir, I move that we approve Bill 4026, the Prairie Acres Lot 1 final plat.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 4026. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 4024 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 4024 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the 38th Amendment to the Unified Development Code, establishing design standards for new single and two-family residential developments.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we want to do another brief staff report for this one, if you don't mind, sir?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. And Mayor and Council, I'm going to take control of your screens here briefly to kind of broadcast the presentation we gave last time. Go through the staff report on this request. So as the city clerk mentioned, this is the proposed 38th Amendment to the Unified Development Code, which proposes new design standards for single and two-family residential dwellings within the city. A little bit of a background on how we got to this meeting this evening. In February of 2025, the council directed staff to conduct some research about the growing concerns around kind of the monotony and architecture and form in our newer subdivisions, and directed staff to do some research and return to them with some ideas on how we could best address that. Through March and September of 2025, we held a few work sessions with the City Council to propose a couple ideas. In the middle there, we also connected with the Kansas City Home Builders Association, various real estate lenders that kind of work in this field as it relates to housing construction, architectural, and planning professions. In October of 2025, we reconvened with the City Council with the HBA in attendance and presented the updates to the City council related to these topics. At that time, based on the information we provided, the council directed staff to gather with more local builders that build here specifically in Raymore and kind of get their feedback on some of the standards we were proposing. So in November of last year, we held that open house, and I think I reported to you all we had about 25 different builders that attended that meeting to hear from staff, and then we left some surveys out there to collect feedback for the next couple of weeks. And then in November, we returned to the city council, to you all, and reported feedback on what the builders had to say about our standards. Following that meeting, in January of 2026, we held the joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council, which was the kind of fully presented draft of standards for both bodies to kind of evaluate. And so I'll just kind of run through this pretty briefly. If there's any questions, we can go into more detail. A couple of things I wanted to hit on. What are the standards and what we're talking about? It's an effort to kind of balance out the development regulation and create diversity in architecture throughout our neighborhoods, specifically to focus on the form of the houses and the lots that are being platted within those subdivisions and kind of prioritize the human scaled elements, which I'll get into in more detail. What they're not, and what they're not intended to do, is regulate the specific type of home that's being built. That's the job of the zoning code within each individual district. And they also do not seek to set any minimum size or footprint or price points for homes within our city. What they are is tools that are intended to promote diversity in our neighborhoods, that create more authentic neighborhoods and housing types that our residents can be proud of. As I mentioned, more human-scaled elements. The one thing that we kind of focused on is the element of the front porch. That seems to be something that in our research and talking with folks was important to the community, and something that in most recent times in the last 10, 15 years has kind of been taken out of a lot of the home types that we see being built across the metro. This was one brief example that we found kind of in our anecdotal research, how housing construction used to happen and kind of how it's happening today. The one thing that we changed, we had the discussion at the joint work session with the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission, and we collected a lot of good feedback at that meeting, but the one topic of conversation focused in on the landscaping standards for the subset of this code section. And so one thing that we ended up changing after we reviewed the feedback that we had gotten, we did end up separating out the point values for different grasses and shrubs. We had a couple different conversations with some folks in the kind of landscape industry who provided some good points to kind of clarify. And so this new point formula still allows for the smaller variations of plants to be used, but it obviously assigns a lower point value for them, more intended to inspire the use of larger trees, shrubs, and more flowerful grasses. This was an exercise just to kind of show what the point values are intended to produce, kind of what 40 points may look like versus 20 or 60. And so the red line on your screen is kind of two examples that exceed what the standards would be under the proposed amendment. The house on the left is significantly exceeds what the 40-point requirement would be, whereas the home on the right side is a little bit more modest in what we would probably expect on average for newly revised landscaping standards to look like. On the bottom is kind of an example of what we're getting right now under the current code. The only requirement in the city right now for new landscaping is one single tree per street frontage, and then every now and then you'll find that builders do add the shrubs and the landscaping around the porch. So this was just to better explain kind of what the point values look like in person on the high, medium, and low side. So in essence, how do we propose to achieve anti-monotony in our subdivisions? It's through different variations at different phases of development. So required variations in the lot widths. When staff looks at preliminary plats and final plats, there's new requirements for how much those lot widths have to vary. So under this proposed amendment, can't come in and just plat 50-foot lots. You've got to now break those up. Staff feels that the width of the lot has a good influence on the type of home that can get built on it. The second half of variation would be entry features, so how you enter the home. We've defined 3 different entry types that have to be varied across different blocks, block faces, streets within the city. And then the last piece would be improved landscaping standards. This proposal, as the formula is written, does bring it into more of what's typically done across different cities in the metro. So while it is a change for Raymore specifically, predominantly most of the builders that build here also build in Lee Summit, Blue Springs, so forth, that have very similar point value calculations for landscaping. So that would conclude my presentation. If there's any specific questions, I'll give you control of your screen back. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might still have.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Appreciate the re-summary. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Circo?
Just so you know, these three computers never received that. We didn't have it on these
Yeah,
three.
we didn't
Yeah.
have it either.
Okay,
Just,
I know some
just the
did,
new
yeah.
members had it, because we'd seen it before. Anybody else have any questions of staff at this time? Yes, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple questions. Maybe some of it is just for some clarity for myself. But I did notice in the new ordinance 430.130 when it refers to maintenance. I know there was some discussion at a previous council meeting regarding requirements for homeowners or residents moving forward once certificate of occupancy was issued on the residents. This section seems to be, it seemed to be stated in that meeting, and maybe correct me if this is incorrect, that is not, that residents are not held to that standard moving forward. Is that correct or incorrect?
That is correct, but I'm going to let Mr. Gress go ahead and expound on that.
Okay, maybe one more thing, Mr. Gress, and then I'll give you the floor. With that being said, that section stating maintenance necessary doesn't really clarify who that is, if that is simply for the builder until time of turnover, et cetera. And so it seems like that, there could be some fuzziness in that. Can you help clarify?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the large packet that's in front of you, only text within that packet that is highlighted is something that's proposed to be added into the code. So the maintenance standards is an existing code requirement that's there right now. It's not proposed to be changed or modified with this amendment. But to clarify your question still about that code section, I'm struggling to find it in this stack of papers here, but within that is the phrase "in accordance with the approved site plan." So commercial properties and multifamily properties are the only two types of development that go through the site plan process versus subdivision platting. So with those, we have an approved site plan that's kept on file, and we do enforce that if required landscaping dies on commercial properties or apartment complex properties. That plan is what we go back to and say you've got to reestablish and bring it back into compliance. So again, nothing that's being proposed this evening changes that across the board, and the intention is to not enforce those regulations on new single-family homes or existing single-family homes.
Thank you. Another question, talking anti-monotony, I think this is can give a great look to our city, in moving forward and having different looks in the neighborhood. A question I had regarding the planting requirements on plant materials. I didn't see anything that specifically mentioned a variation of plant mix on these. Does this address that, or am I correct if there's 40 points? Say it's not a corner lot, right? So one tree is required, which is 10 points, and 30 grasses could be planted?
That would be acceptable. It wasn't written into the code to get the variety of landscaping. The intent was to provide as much flexibility within that 40 points that a resident would want to do. If there's only the one tree requirement, if they would prefer not to have more trees on their property, they can accomplish that through more shrubs or grasses. If they want an excess of trees, they can go that route and get the maximum points through more trees, less shrubs. So in the code, there is no requirement for any diversity in the landscaping requirement.
Okay, thanks. I just had one more question. I know it was mentioned that you connected with local builders as well as KCHBA, but I didn't hear anything about their feedback to this process or potential changes to the ordinance. Can you maybe share a little bit about what some of that feedback was and how we worked with them in developing this?
Yeah, and I can certainly, I know we had shared that feedback in survey form with the council, so I can absolutely send those to you in more detail so you can read through them. In general, I would say most of the consensus was just a little bit more confusion about how this would be implemented. I think there's the perception that any change that happens is going to have some sort of financial impact to a project. The one thing I know, and the HBA actually spoke at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and I know the conversations we had with them were very positive in the fact that we tried to get our builders involved on the front end of this project as opposed to the back end of it. And I know at least they felt and we felt that we tried to be cognizant of this could have a financial impact on projects and make it a little bit more of a challenge to get meet the requirements with budgetary constraints and things like that. I know at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, though, the one thing that the HBA representative said was just how cognizant that staff tried to be of that. And I mentioned under the landscaping requirements, the flexibility, because you can achieve those 40 points or you can achieve the requirements for the entry features at varying price points and levels. And so that was the intent behind not putting in so many strict requirements about it. It has to look like this. It's got to be this type of home. The intent is that the builders can still continue to build the same types of homes that they built here. We weren't asking anybody to go redesign, 10 different floor plans, which is what a lot of cities generally require when they do these anti-monotony ordinances. So instead, we just focused on the couple of things that we felt would have the most impact and tried to make those as flexible as possible while still achieving the anti-monotony goal.
Thank you. One more question and I'm done. Regarding the entry features and having different types of entry features, sometimes topography can be a great impact on that in new developments. Is that something that that the city would entertain some variances on, depending topography, et cetera, for a new development if it were, if it were necessary?
So kind of a two-part answer. We would consider variances for this code on a lot-by-lot basis. The code would be implemented across an entire subdivision, so we would be looking at the implementation of that each time we get a new home permit or a plot plan. So if there were circumstances that warranted that none of these things could be met or the size couldn't be met or whatever the case might be, we would look at that on a case-by-case basis. The flip side of that would also be that these are just intended to be the very base standards of any new home that gets built. If a project were to come forward for a new subdivision that said, hey, I think at the last meeting, the example of a 55 and older community was mentioned. If the end buyer that a developer is trying to sell these homes to just may not want the care of significant landscaping or stairs for some of the entry features, the code would allow for a request to be made to basically ask the council and the planning commission, hey, we don't want to do these requirements, but instead we're proposing these things. And that could be different neighborhood amenities. It could be different decorative features throughout the community. So we would be looking at basically equal or lesser value that we may entertain in a subdivision, but each project would have that variance process or relief from the code through the city council and planning and zoning commission.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 4024. I'll ask again, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 4024? There is no motion to dispose of it. The motion dies for lack of a motion and a second, and therefore a Bill 4024 fails. So now move on to, could I please have the second reading of Bill 4028 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 4028 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with PGAV Architects for concept design services for the Raymore Justice Center and authorizing the city manager to approve changes within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. I would ask for a brief staff report on this one if possible.
Thanks, sir. I would ask Mr. Murdoch to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and I believe even our new council members were at the meeting on March 23rd where we introduced this particular item, but I did want to just give you a brief review of what we're looking at here with Bill 4028. This is the culmination in terms of trying to get the concept design for a potential justice center after 4 years of planning by staff. We've done a staffing study to get to this point. We did a space needs analysis in 2022 that resulted in a report in 2023 about the constraints of this particular facility that we will have going forward as a growing city. We then also were able to purchase land at 58 Highway and Pine Street to give us the flexibility to look at that particular site for a potential justice center. And then the public was gracious enough to approve the public safety sales tax that allowed us to hire and equip additional officers, which was a wonderful endorsement by our community. But it does then, of course, further the constraints of this particular facility by adding those additional officers' equipment that goes along with them. In February, we did issue an RFQ for this particular concept design. We received 5 complete proposals. We established a team that read the proposals, scored the proposals, interviewed all of the firms, and then had discussion after those particular interviews where we came to the consensus that the most qualified firm to lead this particular project was PGAV Architects. The principal of PGAV is here today, Chris Davis. He was also in attendance with us on March 23rd, and so I do thank him for being here. So if you have any questions here in just a second of them, you are welcome to ask him. I do want to note that over the next 3 months, we will work with PGAV on a pretty quick timeline. I know we had that question at the previous meeting. They're confident that that timeline will work for us. But I do want to let you know that through that process, what we anticipate is not only getting a needs analysis done between staff and the firm, but we will have a pretty large emphasis on public engagement processes. So we'll have a chance to hear from the public on this particular project. We have dedicated a portion of the website to doing continued updates through this particular process to keep everybody as informed as possible. And then the end result obviously will be essentially a project that you all will be able to view complete with renderings of the actual site with options for what a potential justice center could look like, leading to the council then having a discussion on a future bond issue for that particular project. We were incredibly pleased and with PGAV's interview, and we're excited about all that they are willing to do with us over the next 3 months to complete this, and we're excited to hear from our community as well on this particular project. At this time, that concludes staff report. Happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions of PGAV, I'm sure they're willing to answer them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Murdock. Are there any questions of staff or yes, Mr. McDonald? Thank
you. I'm getting a little bit of mic time tonight, huh? A few questions. It's helped catch me up maybe a little bit. Is this correct? This is really kind of a expedited time frame compared to what typically would be with the July 3rd target date?
For a concept design project like this is actually probably a pretty standard amount of time, a 3-month process for it. We do have deadlines, of course, to meet, but this is not rushing a process for them.
Okay. And the reason for this, is this accurate? As a city, our wish is to potentially, get this issue on a November ballot?
The November ballot has been mentioned, not necessarily a hard and fast. There are some other factors that we're going to have to be considering. SB3 is one of them, and what the impact of that will be on our debt service fund will be a significant item that we have to be following closely. And if we don't have a resolution on that, we may not have a resolution on this in time for November. But again, as Mr. Murdock indicated, the purpose of this and the reason why this is a good and comfortable time frame for everybody is if we were going the next step that would be the robust engineering that would be associated with something like this, then this would be an incredibly expedited time frame. But because this is simply working with the public, trying to get to here's what it's going to look like when we do eventually go for a bond issue, real good time frame.
Understood. I know it was previously mentioned a few years back, I believe, if I'm accurate, our estimated budget for the project was around 26 to 30 million, knowing that assuming that was going to escalate. I think maybe, Mr. Feuerborn, you had mentioned, maybe either in a work session or council meeting, that this project may or may not include all of our wants versus needs for the facility, depending on what that looks like. Have those been specifically identified? Do we have a budget that we've instructed PGAV to work towards in this. I think, and I ask that simply because what I want to be careful is that we don't present something to the public that then we have to back off of.
100%. I can answer that if you don't mind, sir. One of the things when we did the space needs analysis, we did come up with essentially what you would consider to be the all-encompassing package. If we got everything that we wanted in everything about that particular building, what would that kind of total cost be? That's where you're getting that 26 to 28 million. One of the great things that we did as a part of this particular interview is we stressed with each firm that particular square footage essentially that came with that project was actually still a little oversized, and the firms agreed, by the way, with this as well. So they are working within parameters of square footage that we need, as well as we were able to give essentially a cautious budget in that $20 million range. So we don't anticipate escalating well above like that 28 million that you were talking about previously. And I agree with you. That's incredibly important that we stick with those particular parameters.
Also, why the process itself, it's critical to be getting public input, because then we have the experts in the room with us going, here's why we can't do that right up front.
Great. I assume, kind of fit and finish, exterior facade, et cetera, has kind of been approached with that as well in budget, because, as we know, that kind of fit and finish can greatly increase costs.
One of the stresses that we made is we need to shape the corner, right? So
Yeah.
based on that particular thing. So that's why multiple options as a part of that are going to be presented to us. But we recognize the need to not only produce the building itself, but to shape the S-curve as a part of that.
Anything else? Anybody else have any questions at this time?
I had one question for Mr. Davis, actually, if he wouldn't mind.
Yes, sir. I think do I state my name and?
Well, I'd wait for the question first.
Okay, sure.
Might not want to answer it.
Yeah. I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Knowing the history of PJV and your partner Kimley Horn on this, I think you guys are well qualified for this type of project. You have a lot of these type of projects under your belt as well. One of the things that I noticed in your submittal that you guys stated you have extensive experience in public engagement efforts. I think everyone up here understands how important it's going to be in getting residents and the public on board with this if we're going to move forward, right? Can you maybe just give us a couple examples on what you all could do to assist us with that and engaging the public, and how we would go about that over the process of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess first off, Chris Davis, I'm a principal with PGAV Architects. Our address is 4900 Main Street, Suite 1000, Kansas City, Missouri. There are a lot of sort of tools in the tool belt, as it were, to engage the public. We think it's very important. One of the things that impressed us as we started to do some research and get to know the city of Raymore is our impression of the incredibly positive relationship between the law enforcement officers and the community. That's a great place to sort of start the process, and we want to build upon that. And so examples are surveys, right? So that you can cover a large population pretty efficiently, and we would help craft questions and utilize sort of city tools to push those out to residents if that's an option. Town hall meetings are a good way to, again, that's sort of an invitation for citizens to come in and participate, and we can make, we've done that different ways, sometimes through a presentation. Often we will set up sort of stations manned by different folks in our office, and it's more of a dialogue, and we can kind of collectively have more of a personal conversation with constituents. It's a great way to collect information. And then if there are, focus groups or task forces, that the city would like to form, we can have more focused conversations with smaller groups of people that focus on specific issues. So there's a lot of ways that we can gather that information. And we would work with the city manager's office and the project leadership to sort of craft those. And certainly if there's any opinions of council, we're always happy to to hear how you think we might best engage your community, because you know your community the best.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all I had. I appreciate it. Mr. Fearborn, I apologize. One more question. As you say, this is the next step. No matter the timeline of this project, this is the next step that needs to take place, whether that happens, now, later, whether we're able to get that on, that goes on a ballot in November or at a later date. Is that accurate?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, anyone else? Okay, if there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 4028.
Your Honor,
Mr. Holman,
sir, I move that we approve Bill 4028, award of contract for the Justice Center Conceptual Design Services to PGAV Architects.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 4028. Any further discussion? Mr. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I originally voted yes on this in our last full meeting. I think with the overwhelming passage of SB 3 that we witnessed last Tuesday, not just in our county, but several counties in Missouri, it is something that we need to consider until we get resolution on that. A GO bond is built on property tax increasing, and in the state, by putting SB 3 out there, is actually potentially going to restrain our capacity, at least on eligible residences. So in much of my life, I would rather spend extra time and do something right than try and get something done quickly and maybe not the product that our citizens really would require. $175,000 is a lot of money. I think we have the time. I would not support putting this on the November ballot simply because legislation may carry out until October, November before we get resolution on whether or not SB 3 will actually be enforced. And at some point, I know there's a deadline for the November ballot. If that court case is still lingering, that would be a moot point. But I think if SB 3 would have been defeated last Tuesday, the timing would be much better. But I think with this looming case pending, not only on our city, but several cities, but our city in particular, with this bond project and a GO bond coming up, I would rather we have more time to look at this, more time for our vendor to maybe not get this through in 2.5 months, which seems extremely rushed. And like Councilman McDonald said, I don't want our citizens to think, okay, here's the final product that we're going to have on July 3rd, and then SB 3 continues, and that may change the entire story of what we were presented or what we presented our citizens after July 3rd when this project's done. So for that, I know that we need a Justice Center. I think that's in our future. I think SB 3 needs to be legislated and decided. Preferably, this would probably be better suited on next April on a municipal ballot like most GO bonds are. But with that being said, I realize that we need it, but I don't think rushing through 2.5 months on a $175,000 investment with SB 3 lingering is something that I can support at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else have any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? We have 5 yes, 3 noes. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move on to new business. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 4030 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 4030 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with J.M. Fahey Construction Company for the Dean Avenue Mo 58 access modifications, city project number 26437-201, in the amount of $1,018,440, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Salisbury to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mayor, members of the council, excuse me. Tonight before you is the award of contract for the Dean Avenue and Mo 58 access modifications project. This project originated back in 2023 as a median on 58 Highway to restrict access to Kentucky Avenue. Since then, it's evolved into a median down Dean Avenue from the South Walmart entrance up to the intersection with 58 Highway, as well as down 58 Highway to Westgate. Included in that is a new traffic signal near Big Biscuit to the south of it, and overlay of the pavement on 58 from Dean to Westgate. We did receive 2 bids for this project. J.M. Fahey was determined to be the lowest and best bidder, and staff recommends award of the contract to J.M. Fahey in the amount of $1,018,440. That concludes my staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of staff? Mr. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just from not being a road engineer, but when they install the medians, particularly on Dean Avenue, we know that potentially on 58, we're doing a major mill and overlay. I guess second question, is that going to be done in conjunction with that? But on Dean Avenue, how will the road be affected? Do they just lay the medians on top of Dean, or will they have to dig into Dean? And what safeguards do we have, since we just did a mill and overlay on Dean? How do we make that work without?
Sure, there will be extensive traffic control, and it will be modifying the middle of the road. They will actually be digging into the road so that it sits down in the road and not is just pinned to the surface. We should get a higher quality product from that. I think that answers your question.
So much like they're redoing the curbs on Dean right now, I saw today they cut them out almost all the way around on that. But a clean cut, they'll lay the new curbs, it'll go right next to the existing asphalt. That's essentially what they'll do on that as well.
That is correct.
And then on 58, will that be done in conjunction with the mill and overlay, or will we do one of those first and come medians after that?
So because J.M. Fahey got both projects, they will coordinate their mill and overlay efforts through the whole project.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of staff? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Your Honor.
Mr. Holman?
Sir, I move that we approve Bill 4030, award of contract for the Dean Avenue, Missouri 58 access modifications to J.M. Fahey.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 4030. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 4031 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 4031 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Pavement Management LLC for the crack seal project, city project number 26-483-202 in the amount of $114,800, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thanks, sir. I'd ask Mr. Salisbury to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mayor, members of the council. But tonight before you is the award of contract for the crack sealing project. This is part of an ongoing effort to stretch our street preservation dollars and to get as much as we can out of those projects through different methods. The purpose of this project is to perform crack sealing maintenance work on specifically roads south of Lucy Webb, what we call Zone 3. We did previously bid this project this winter, and the pricing came back too high, so we rejected bids and put it back out with a lower quantity so that we could fit within the budget we were looking for. We did receive 5 bids, and Pavement Management LLC was determined to be the lowest best bidder. Staff does recommend the award of the contract to Pavement Management LLC in the amount of $114,800, and that concludes my staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff at this time? Mr. Baker?
One question. When we had those issues out in Whitetail, Mr. Salisbury, you had brought up a solution that you had brought from western Kansas with the crack sealing out there, and that was a cheaper cost. You had made the comment, we're doing more with less, which actually has stuck with me since you've said that, because I think that's a very prudent way to spend or have the mindset of spending taxpayer dollars. Is this sealant different from Whitetail and what we used out there in some other test modes, or is this something similar, or how did we come up with that?
So it's a little bit different. The sealant that was used in Whitetail is considered mastic sealant. It's a little bit for the larger cracks, the transverse cracks. This would be any small crack, generally around a 1/4 inch or so is what we're looking to fill. Sealing those cracks keeps water out of the pavement and ultimately extends the life of the pavement. Our city operations crews are now doing our mastic program, so we did not include it in this project. We felt that we could better use our money by contracting out this work for a large quantity of work.
So anything more than a quarter of an inch, because that's what the vendor would fill. So if we're identifying cracks larger than a quarter of an inch, are we aggressively, like in this zone 3, going after those to this project? Or?
And a quarter inch was just a generic term. It can be one way or the other of it a little bit, but yes, we're focusing on our zone 3, trying to get through them, and then we'll work on the other zones as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else have any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 4031.
Your Honor,
Mr. Holman,
sir, I move that we approve Bill 4031, award of contract for crack seal project to Pavement Management LLC.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motions have been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 4031. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 4032 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 4032 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Eastbrook at Creekmore Fifth Final Plat, a subdivision of land located in the southeast quarter and southwest quarter of Section 4, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I'd ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, the request before you this evening, the final plat request on behalf of Cooper Land Development, developer of Creekmore, for the 5th plat of the Eastbrook subdivision. It is generally located between the 4th plat of Eastbrook, which is generally north of 163rd Street, and provides the connection between Creekmore Drive and Rannoch Lane to the north there. So it closes the gap and provides connectivity to 163rd Street. The zoning of this property is entirely PUD and is surrounded by existing golf course areas and single-family detached homes. A little bit of background on the Creekmore plan before I get into more information. The MOU and the preliminary plan, which is the master land use plan for Creekmore, was approved by the City Council in January of 2004, and we're nearing kind of the end of the development areas of Eastbrook, and then Cunningham has a few phases left as well. So we're reaching the full build-out of the Creekmore subdivision, and this is the 5th and last phase of the Eastbrook portion of that. The request includes 49 new single-family lots and various common area tracts for portions of the golf course and storm drainage. One thing that will take place with this is the cart path was built through this area prior to homes being built. And so as part of this project, they will be required to remove a fairly significant portion of the cart path and relocate it a little bit further south. It provides for a little safer intersection crossing for golf carts and vehicles. And so that's another public improvement that they'll take on as part of this phase. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review this request at their April 7th meeting and voted to send it to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. That would conclude my staff report. I know the applicant Jody is here this evening if there's any questions of the council. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff at this time? Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Just a question on the findings of fact. It's on page 304 of our packet, but number 1, and this is more just a question of how this was initiated, but basically the final plat deviated from the approved preliminary plat, basically to go from 24 to 49 homes, which is substantial. How did that come about? I mean, obviously there has to be something that, a give and take for us to allow that many homes. Did we?
In the MOU, as I mentioned, that's what guides the development of Creekmore, and it's been amended 7 times since it was initially approved by the council. The 6th and 7th amendments, or I'll back up, the original plan for Creekmore had various areas that were slated for townhomes and duplexes, and so early on in Creekmore, they changed the land use plan to remove the townhomes and replace those with single-family lots. That was down in the southwest quarter of Creekmore as you get up north of Fox Ridge. But the 6th and 7th amendments removed effectively all of the other 2-family areas. And so the thing that they changed in that, there were originally, my notes here. Within those areas that were slated for 2-family development, there were effectively 160 to 192 2-family units that could be built. And so when they amended the MOU and the land use plan, they simply amended the land use. And so those went from being 2-family lots to then single-family lots. And so that explains the reasoning behind kind of the shifting of different lot counts around phases of Creekmore is because we reduced the number of lots over in one phase of Eastbrook, and they're kind of shifting those over to other areas of Eastbrook. I know one thing that came up at the planning and zoning meeting was a question about the gallery lots, and so those are the typical lots that are within the Eastbrook subdivision. They're the more narrow lots that we've seen here recently. What I wanted to make sure was kind of understood is that, because it was asked at the planning and zoning meeting, Eastbrook is not necessarily synonymous with gallery lots. And so the Eastbrook third phase was significantly less lots than what was originally planned for. They were a little bit larger, more standard lots. And so in this phase, they have chosen a little bit more of a mixture of those. So there's, think of the 49 lots that are in there, I think 21 of them are the gallery style, and then the remainder of those are the more standard R1 size lots. And so it's those amendments to the code that got rid of other two-family and multifamily uses. They were able to make up for those units in the format of single-family homes effectively.
Anything else? Okay. Yes, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Just a question to help me with some clarification. This has been going on for some time here. I believe, is this accurate, a kind of fair amount of the 180s lots and 190s lots are those gallery lots with the shorter setback on those?
Yes.
Being that this development plan was changed, or the MOU was from two-family to single-family, what was our process in the allowance of the gallery lots as opposed to lots that are, typical size with our typical required setback?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the change to the MOU that created the gallery lots is specific to Eastbrook. You can't really build those in other phases of Creekmore. You can do typical R1 lots, and you can do what they also have the approval of as patio lots, which is kind of in the middle. I will say that in the developers here, if you guys have any questions as well, when we got the first submittal of this fifth plat, it was actually at the time they were doing the fourth plat. They initially proposed to do this as one large phase. And staff had some concerns with the curve of the curve of Creekmore Drive, the kind of alignment of that road. And so we asked them to split those out, which they did, and we got the fourth plat approved, and there's several homes under construction there. They recently came back with the proposal for the fifth plat, which was entirely gallery lots, with several of them fronting Creekmore Drive. And so we went through several different iterations to break up the concentration of those gallery lots, particularly along Creekmore Drive, based on some traffic concerns. And so the number of the gallery lots was significantly reduced in exchange for a handful of the more typical style lots in this phase of Eastbrook.
Thanks for clarification.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions of staff or the developer? If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Your Honor.
Mr. Holman,
So I move that we approve Bill 4032, Eastbrook at Creekmore, fifth final plat.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 4032. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. That concludes new business this evening. We'll now move on to public comments. If anyone from the public would care to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public comments for this evening, and we'll move on to mayor council communications. I'll give our two newbies up here the first shot. Mr. McDonald, go for it.
Well, I probably had enough microphone time tonight, but I appreciate you all working with me tonight and answering those questions. Number one, I look forward to the Justice Center being able to support our law enforcement, emergency services, and other folks that will utilize that building. My hesitation on that is simply with timing and SB3 and funding, being careful what that looks like, but look forward to supporting that. I just want to thank the voters for their support and showing up. I look forward to being a voice for you, and like to give a special thanks to my wife for her support over the last few months, and her giving me up on Monday evenings as well as some other time to be able to serve our community. I find it an honor, and look forward to serving well.
Thank you, sir. Well said. Mr. Rowe.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a privilege to serve. If I don't thank my wife now, I'm going to get in trouble, so thank you if she is listening to that. I did want to give a special shout out before I forget. I had a occasion to meet some of our first responders firsthand this past week, and I was very grateful that when those lights and sirens went off, that the right people showed up with the right skills and took care of a family member of mine. So really grateful for that, grateful for the men and women of South Metro as well. The operator, I wanted to meet the operator, the telecommunications professional who took that call, and apologize. I'm sure I said some things I regret, but I appreciate her patience as I was trying to get some folks on site. Again, it's going to be a privilege to serve the people of Ward 4. I appreciate them coming out and voting. I think we had a record number of folks come out, which is indicative of just kind of where things stand, and I think people wanted to see some change. I want to express my gratitude to Sonia for her service to this community in 14 years. That's not something we should take lightly. That's incredible, and so I appreciate her service. I mean that genuinely, and I look forward to working with city staff over the next 2 years and learning from you and learning from each other. Again, privileged to serve. Grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to first start off, since Mr. Mills is still here, to thank Mr. Mills for his service over the last 2 years. He's been very instrumental in helping me understand not only Raymore politics, Cass County politics, constitutional issues, and so over the last 2 years, we have formed one of the strongest friendships I have, someone I can always count on. I know that his wife and my wife talk all the time, so thank you, Mr. Mills, for your service up here. It will always go without me forgetting what you did for me. I'd like to congratulate our 2 new members. It really does take someone special to run for city council. It's not always easy up here. There's always, times in which we may not agree. We may not agree with people within our community. But to have really 3 people step up this year and run, well, 4 if you count all 4 districts, to have an election this year to where we had opposing opponents in all 4 wards, I think that says something. And for the 2 of you that won, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Rowe, congratulations. I look forward to working with both of you. And then lastly, it is National Police Telecommunications and Animal Control Week, both 2 very vital functions. The incident that Councilman Rowe mentioned, when things happen, they happen very high intense timing, but they are the calm in the voice in the storm. So a well-deserved week, and not only a week, but we should really appreciate both those groups year-round, as we do our police officers and everybody else that supports our citizens within the city. Excited for all the action in Ward 1, the curb repair, the street repair, and all that. I think that's something that, citizens will see, and it'll move to Ward 4 and then across the city. But these are investments within the city that are very important to our citizens, just to have good roads, and I'm glad that we're taking a big step with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to say, Erica, you had me at a disadvantage. You had one hand up, one hand down. I cannot talk without my hands. I have to, and I couldn't move them. And I was trying to remember what you said. It was getting confusing. I'm sorry. Secondly, I want to reach out to South Metro Fire, Raymore PD. My wife had a horrible fall last Friday, was severely hurt, but she was able to get and call me. I got home to assess the situation. I called 911. The dispatchers were fantastic. Boom, they were on there within 2 minutes. Fire was there, ambulance, to help her to the hospital. She's doing magnificently great from what could have been, and that's a God's blessing upon us. But I just want to say, our PD, they showed up, a sergeant, so they were right there, along with the fire, and they knew me. We were talking, and they were concerned. I know our chief, I contacted, he was concerned. The chief of fire, Lee, he was concerned. It's nice to see that they care about everybody in our city. Not because I'm a councilman, we know them, and that's how they respond. So it's a big kind of, South Metro Fire and Raymore PD are 2 of the best, and they do well. I was amazed at how quick everything went down. Very appreciative, and the dispatchers who got that done. As soon as I called, I mean, that phone rang one time, dispatcher was on the phone already. What can we do with it? I told him, okay, what's your stuff? I said, I need the ambulance. Mr. Circle, the ambulance is on its way. I was so nervous, but they were right on top of it. So it went really well, being National Public Safety telecommunicators dispatch. So a real privilege to them. They do a great job. Always, I've heard they do a good job. Want to say thank you to, it's a great election. Thank you to our two new city councilmen. Congratulations on your victory. It was good to see so much. We knew they were going to come out, and there was a lot of voters. Ward 2 stood strong. I went out hardworking. My voters stood out. They came out in abundance. They gave me the votes I need to win by 82. And I really thank Ward 2. I'll serve Ward 2 like I've always served them. To due diligence, I serve them all. I don't care who they are. They call me, I serve them. I'm elected to serve, and I will serve Ward 2 like I've always done and be proud to do it on any given time. But thanks for all that. It was a good, long meeting tonight, but it was kind of productive, educational. So I thank everybody for that. Thank Mr. Mills for the 2 years he served. We were good friends, long-time friends. So I was always work with him on a lot of issues anyway. But we have a good staff. We have a good group up here on the diocese. And we're going to move forward into this 26, and I think we're going to do very well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if there's any air left here after Tom's. First, I want to thank Mr. Mills and Mrs. Abdelgawad for their service. It is something that neither one of them took lightly, and I do appreciate people that come forward and put themselves out there. I do want to address the two new council members, Councilman Rowe and Councilman McDonald. Congratulations. Again, coming forward and doing that, that shows a lot, and I know for sure it's something that putting yourself out there and giving up your Monday nights, except your first work session you have off. So that's not real fair. But I also want to welcome back Mr. Holman and Mr. Circo. And I got to tell a story about Mr. Circo. I appreciated both you guys' comments, by the way. When Tom got elected for the first time, the mayor did the exact same thing to him. I don't know if you remember that, Tom, but Tom could not say a word, and it's the first time in his life that he's ever gotten lockjaw. You can tell tonight he doesn't have lockjaw anymore, but thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Inger.
Thank you, sir. As I look around the room in my 9 years here in Raymore, I think I've utilized the services of about everybody within the city, including the fire department. Animal control, public safety, police department. I hate to say it, but they've been out a lot and taking care of some things. So I would like to extend my hand to them and for the fine work that they've done for the citizens here. And I'm not going to talk anymore because it's almost my bedtime.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's pretty much all been said, but just I will reiterate, thanks to the voters for participating, and we had a pretty decent turnout, better than average, and appreciate the support. I would like to thank staff. We have some new council members tonight, and they were obviously eager and curious, so that's a good thing to have, and so they ask a lot of good questions. The responses were spot on, very thorough and understandable, well done. It shows the world-class staff that we have here within the city, working hard for our citizens. Chief, excellent report, another excellent report on basically the state of the city from a criminal justice standpoint. From the reporting, public safety has always been a prime concern. If not the number one, it's in the top 2 or 3, has been for decades here, and you all continue to provide that safe environment for our citizens. We greatly appreciate it. That's all I have, sir. Thank you,
sir. Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank those who voted, those candidates, those that have served, and those that will serve. I think that says it all. But wanted to, this is something that sometimes Sonia would do. She'd give a little, new council member message. And so I'll give it, since I'm the only other teacher left on up here, or retired teacher. When you read the packet and you come up with great questions, when you bring them in, when you read your question, say, I saw this in the packet, and I saw this, what does that mean? Instead of coming in and asking a question like, it's not anywhere in the contract, is there anything that's gonna help us claw anything back if there's a danger in this contract? When you know it's there, if you don't know it's there, you didn't read it. And I'm telling you, when you ask a question, the way that you ask it lets people know whether you did your homework or not. That's it. That's all it is. So we all promised to do this job. Let's do it. Read it all. Ask questions to those that know better answers than us. Go research, use ChatGPT, do it all. And keep asking questions. But let us know that you're actually doing the homework, because I know I saw a person, this is back in P&Z days, but they were ahead of another board, and they came in and they opened their packet in front of me and looked at the agenda for the first time up here. And I was just like, you need to do less things in your life. Anyway, I'm glad everybody's up here. It's going to be a good time. We're going to do a lot of great things for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, and as we close tonight, I want to begin by, again, congratulating those who were elected to serve our community and re-elected. Stepping into public service is no small commitment, that's for sure, and I respect the willingness it takes to run for office. Elections naturally bring change, and with that change comes new perspectives around the dais. While we may not always agree on every issue or approach, what matters most is that we remain grounded in our shared commitment to the people of Raymore. This community has always been strongest when we work together thoughtfully, respectfully, and with a focus on long-term success. The future of Raymore depends not on any one individual, but on our ability as a council to collaborate, listen, and make decisions that serve the greater good. I am optimistic about what lies ahead. We have talented individuals on this council. We have dedicated staff, as was mentioned, and a community that cares deeply about where we're going. If we stay focused on those common goals, I am confident we will continue to move Raymore forward in a positive and meaningful way. Thank you all, and I look forward to the work ahead. All right? And that's all I have this evening. We have no reason to go into executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Your Honor.
Mr. Holman.
Sir, I move that we adjourn this April 13th, 2026 meeting of the Raymore City Council.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. All those in favor of the adjournment? It is unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you.